The tribunal chamber was bathed in sterile violet light, its ceiling arching like the inside of a ribcage. Sira Vale stood alone at its center, stripped of her ceremonial cuffs and neck crest. Her pale blue skin, usually veined with glowing pride marks, was now dulled, faded like an uncharged crystal. 12 figures loomed above her, faces hidden beneath faceless silver masks. The Grand Adjudicator, her mother, watched from the center. "You have been weighed," the voice echoed without emotion. "And you have failed." Sira didn't flinch. Her fingers twitched at her sides, as if she might speak, protest, or cry. But she did none of those things. She stood quiet, chin lifted just enough to make it clear she would not beg. Purity of mind, of tradition, of purpose. Another voice intoned. "You exhibit anomalies, resistance, deviance." A small pulse of static throbbed in her temples. The memory of the test, the deep scan, the twisting of thoughts, the invasive questions, burned behind her eyes. They had called it sacred. It had felt like a knife. "Punishment is required," said her mother. Her voice was sharper than the others, cutting through the room's stillness. "To spare you would invite fracture. To exile you would invite corruption." The silence pressed down like weight. Sira dared a glance at the onlookers behind the crystal barrier. Fellow initiates, elders, spectators. Most averted their eyes. A few, young ones, stared openly, their expressions caught between awe and fear. "Death," the tribunal declared. The word hung like frost in the air. Sira breathed in through her nose. So it was done. As guards stepped forward, she heard the sound of ceremonial blades drawn from their sheaths. Not for use yet, only for ritual. Cold metal cuffs snapped around her wrists. "Remove her from this place," the Grand Adjudicator ordered, voice flat. Sira didn't resist as she was led through the winding corridor that spiraled down and out of the tribunal dome. The hall echoed with every step, the guards silent except for the mechanical hiss of their armor plates flexing with motion. They marched her past murals of Valari ancestors, eyes burning with ancient resolve, hands raised in unity. Sira had once stared at those murals and felt pride. Now they looked like prison walls. Outside, the twilight of Zavaros cast everything in muted bronze. The twin moons had not yet risen. A single aircraft waited, a sleek tribunal skimmer designed for prisoner transport. Nearby, 2 more figures stood conversing quietly. One Valari warden, and beside him, unmistakably human. Captain Elias Roan didn't look much like the stories she'd heard. No scars, no armor, just a worn navy blue jacket, utilitarian boots, and a face that seemed too open, too alive for a species that had once glassed an entire moon in retaliation for a massacre. He watched her with the solemnity of a soldier at a funeral. He wasn't supposed to speak, but as the guards placed her inside the transport cell, his voice slipped past protocol. "She's barely of age," he said quietly. "She failed the purity test," the warden replied without inflection. Elias tilted his head slightly, brows pulling together. "You execute your own children for thought crimes? They are not children, and thoughts have consequences." Sira didn't react, but inside, her blood stirred. The transport's doors sealed shut. The chamber vibrated as the engines came to life, lifting them into the bruised sky. Through the cell window, she saw the capital spires begin to shrink, replaced by barren stretches of desert and red stone. "Destination, Outpost Theta 17, one guard announced. That was where the executions happened. Quietly, without fanfare, Sira closed her eyes and leaned her head back. A part of her had expected this for years. She had always been different. Not loud, not rebellious, just curious. She'd asked questions about the humans, about other ways of thought. She'd failed the empathic suppression drills twice. She had once, in secret, watched a human documentary on cultural pluralism. That last one had sealed her fate. "You have a visitor," a voice buzzed, hours later. She opened her eyes, blinking in the artificial glow that flooded her cell. Elias Roan stood just beyond the shield barrier, hands behind his back. "You're not supposed to be here," she muttered. He looked at the guard beside him, then back at her. "They gave me 5 minutes. I don't want your pity." "Good," he said. "I didn't bring any." She looked up sharply. "I've seen judicial systems break people in all sorts of ways," Elias said. "But it's different when they do it smiling." "What do you want?" "Answers," he said. "And maybe to offer something in return." Syrah narrowed her eyes. "Why?" "Because what they're doing to you is wrong," he said plainly. "And because if I walk away and let it happen, I'm no better than they are." She stared at him, trying to find the angle, the lie, the trap. But his face was maddeningly sincere. "You can't help me," she said finally. "Probably not," Elias admitted. "But I can try. And that might be enough." She turned away. "I read your tribunal file," he continued. "You hesitated during the 4th sequence. You projected human empathy markers. That's what they called it." Syrah flinched. "They called it impurity. They called it dangerous," Elias said, "because it made you unpredictable." She didn't speak. "Back on Earth," he said slowly, "we used to burn women for having thoughts like yours." Syrah turned to look at him again. "We stopped," he said. "Eventually. After centuries. After blood." She studied him for a long moment. "Why are you really here?" Elias hesitated. "Because I can't forget your eyes in that tribunal chamber," he said. "You looked like someone who just watched her own soul torn out." Syrah felt something sharp twist behind her ribs. She hated him for saying that, for seeing her. "You're risking diplomatic ties," she whispered. "I know. You'll start a war." "I hope not." "And if I say I don't want saving?" Elias exhaled. "Then I'll leave you alone." The silence stretched. Finally, Syrah said, "You have 30 seconds to prove you're not lying." He nodded, then reached into his jacket and placed something on the floor outside the shield. An old translator cube, black and scarred, blinking faintly. "It's unlocked," he said. "You can use it to talk to your guards, disable prison locks, or call me. Your choice." The guard beside him stiffened. "This is irregular." Elias held up a diplomat's override chip. "I am within my jurisdiction." He stepped back. Syrah looked at the cube. She didn't move. Elias turned to leave. He stopped at the doorway. "For what it's worth," he said without turning, "I think failing their test means you pass something far more important." The door hissed shut behind him. Syrah sat in silence for a long time. Her fingers hovered over the cube, not touching it. The guards didn't return. No one came. When the darkness deepened again, she whispered, "What if he's right?" She reached out. The cube hummed softly under her palm. Lights flickered, and the cell shield blinked. Just once. Then again. She stood, heart racing. Not with hope. She didn't believe in that anymore. But something else had bloomed in her chest. Possibility. When the door finally slid open, she didn't flinch. Elias stood there, alone, breath shallow, holding a device that smelled of burnt circuitry. "Ready?" he asked. She nodded. They ran. Through corridors of silence and out into the choking wind. The desert was colder than Syrah remembered. Night draped itself across the sand like a corpse shroud, and the wind sliced at her exposed skin with needle teeth. She ran beside Elias, legs burning, lungs aching, metal cuffs still locked around her wrists. No moon, no markers, no safe path. Behind them, the outpost loomed like a fossilized beast, its spotlights scouring the landscape in angry arcs. Sirens rose and fell, warbling like hunted prey. "This way," Elias whispered, tugging her sharply to the left, down a slope of shattered rock. His movements were confident but not careless. He wasn't guessing. He had planned this. They ducked beneath an overhang, breath steaming in the air. Elias pulled a tiny beacon from his belt and crushed it underfoot. "No rescue?" Syrah asked. "No, that wasn't a signal." He pressed something against her cuffs, and the locks hissed open. "It was a lie for whoever's tracking us." She rubbed her wrists, surprised at the sudden ache of freedom. We have 12 minutes before drones pick up our trail, he said. More if they think we doubled back. Why are you doing this? She asked again, not angry, just hollow. He paused, looked at her. Because if I let them kill you for being curious, it means all our treaties, all our progress, none of it's real. She studied him in the dark. The humans had a strange softness to their eyes, even when they were full of fire. He wasn't like the tribunal. He wasn't empty inside. They moved again, climbing through jagged ravines and into the husk of a long-dead cargo crawler. Inside, the rusted interior still held remnants of forgotten lives, dried ration wrappers, cracked power cores, a child's toy shaped like a serpent. Elias closed the hatch and activated a thermal shield. The air shimmered briefly, then stilled. We rest here for 2 hours, he said. Then we move to the evac point. Syrah sat opposite him, legs tooked under her. And what happens after that? You take me to Earth? Parade me around as some saved savage? Elias didn't answer immediately. He looked tired now, older. I'm not here to save you, Syrah. You saved yourself. I just opened a door. She scoffed softly, but there was no venom in it. I grew up memorizing your people's military history, she said. You terraformed a gas giant's moon by force. You turned an extinction event into a colony site. But this is what scares my people. Syrah didn't reply. They slept in shifts. When it was her turn, she watched Elias breathe, slow and steady. He seemed at peace even here. She envied that. They moved again before dawn. The wind was merciless now, clawing at their cloaks. At one point, Elias tripped and caught himself with a grunt. Blood dotted the sand. You're hurt, she said. Just a scratch. Liar. He didn't argue. By mid-morning, they reached the edge of an abandoned refinery. Rusted towers leaned against the sky like broken limbs. A few scattered buildings remained, half swallowed by sand. It looked like a place time had exiled. They ducked into a crumbling hangar. Inside, a makeshift camp had been set up, rations, a transmitter, a fold-out medical kit. We're early, Elias muttered. The evac window won't open for another hour. Syrah examined the transmitter. Encrypted. Level 9. Not high enough, she said. If the tribunal scans for illegal signals, they'll trace it, yes. He frowned. We'll have to risk it. I can't hide you forever. She walked to the doorway, stared at the horizon. I don't want to hide. Elias stood beside her. Then what do you want? She hesitated. To understand why my people would rather destroy minds than let them wander. Because control is easy to maintain when no one asks questions. And you? She asked. Don't your leaders fear disobedience? He shrugged. Some do. But on Earth, disobedience built everything that mattered. They fell into silence, watching the sky lighten. Then something shimmered near the far ridge. A skimmer too small for tribunal military, too fast for desert scavengers. Friend of yours? Syrah asked. No, Elias said grimly. We have to move. They bolted from the hangar, sprinting toward a hidden tunnel shaft half buried in sand. Elias keyed in a code. The hatch groaned open, and they slipped inside just as the skimmer descended. The tunnel was dark and damp, lined with old maintenance cables. They ran for several minutes until a figure stepped from the shadows ahead. Tall, cloaked, unmistakably Valari. Syrah stopped cold. Wait, Elias said, raising a hand. The figure pulled back their hood. A young woman, eyes burning, familiar. Ken, Syrah breathed. Her former training partner, long presumed lost. Ken stepped forward, jaw tight. You finally failed, she said. Took you long enough. Syrah blinked. What are you doing here? Resisting, Ken said. You're not the only one who questioned the test. I thought you were dead. I was. Officially. Elias moved between them. We don't have time for reunions. Ken nodded. Follow me. They were led to a chamber deeper underground where half a dozen Valari, young, marked as failed, were gathered around a flickering map. Elias scanned the room. This is a rebel cell, he said. No, Ken corrected. This is the future of our people. Sira stepped forward. You survived without being caught? We did more than survive, said one of the others. We've been collecting proof of what the test really is. Ken brought up a projection, a neural scan, overlaid with data streams. The purity test isn't about culture. It's a forced compliance scan. Those who pass aren't pure, they're programmable. Sira stared at it. And those who fail are immune. Elias cursed under his breath. We have a plan, Ken said. But we need help. We can't transmit the truth alone. Our signals get jammed. But a human diplomat. Elias shook his head. If I transmit anything unauthorized, I'll be disavowed. Then help us escape the planet, Sira said. Take the data to someone who will listen. No one will care, Elias said. Not unless it bleeds into galactic politics. Then we make it, Ken said. We expose the tribunal during a major council session. Elias looked at her. You'll be hunted. We already are. He sighed. Give me the drive. Ken handed it over. You have one chance. They prepped to move again, splitting into two groups. Sira stuck close to Elias. As they reached the surface, tribunal ships howled above, scanning the desert like wolves. Elias activated a flare decoy, and 3 of the rebels sprinted into the open, drawing fire. Sira grabbed his arm. We need to go now. They reached the evac point, an old satellite relay tower converted into a pickup site. A small human ship uncloaked just as enemy fire lit the sky. Go! Elias shouted as the ramp lowered. They climbed aboard. The ship blasted into the upper atmosphere. Inside, medics tended to Elias' arm. Sira stood by the window, watching the world shrink beneath them. She didn't cry, but something in her cracked. Elias joined her. You did it. She shook her head. We did something. But the war hasn't started yet. He handed her a ration bar. Eat. You'll need your strength. She took it, unwrapped it, and bit without tasting. What happens when the council hears the truth? She asked. They'll deny it, then panic, then maybe change. And if they don't, then we fight louder. The ship hummed through the stars. Sira closed her eyes. She was no longer a prisoner. Now she was a threat. The council chamber hovered above the clouds, a glass jewel balanced on an invisible hand. On most days, it served as a symbol of unity. Valari, human, Arkan, and Sestari delegates gathering in choreographed diplomacy. But today it was a crucible. Sira stood near the observation panel, watching skimmers slice silently through the stratosphere. Her borrowed diplomat's robe itched. She resisted the urge to scratch. Her mind was elsewhere, on the data drive, on Ken's face as she vanished into the smoke, on the tribunal ships that still circled Valari skies like carrion birds. Elias entered, adjusting the translator node behind his ear. He looked different in formal attire, less like a rogue soldier, more like someone who could stand before empires and make them listen. They'll try to delay the presentation, he said. Say the evidence is circumstantial, unverified. Then we speak before they can smother it. He gave a short nod. Security's tight. I pulled in favors. But if things go south, I know where the exits are. He hesitated. I've never seen someone so calm before a political execution. I've already died once, Sira said. What comes next is just noise. The chamber doors opened. A Sestari herald beckoned them forward. They walked side by side into the amphitheater, its rising seats packed with delegates from 57-member worlds. The tribunal sat at the top tier, shrouded in their ceremonial black, faces masked in silver. Their stillness was volcanic. Elias took the podium. Sira stood beside him. Counselors, he began. I speak not as a representative of Earth alone, but as a witness to a grave breach of interspecies accord. The evidence you will see today does not indict a people. It indicts a system. Polite murmurs rippled across the tiers. Sira stepped forward. I am Sira Valtari, former initiate of the Valari Ascension Order. I was marked unclean, failed the purity test. This tribunal sentenced me to erasure. The room shifted, quieted. She held up the drive. Inside this is a compiled record of neural scans, tribunal directives, and genetic tampering reports, collected by survivors who escaped execution. It proves the test is not a measure of morality or tradition. It is a neurological filter designed to isolate compliance and destroy independence. A human delegate leaned forward. Is this verified? We've submitted it to the Cross-Species Forensic Board, Elias said. They're confirming its authenticity now. A tribunal voice rang out, deep and modulated. This is an internal Valari matter, not council jurisdiction. Sira met the voice head-on. You made it a galactic matter when you executed minds for thinking freely. An Arcan counselor flicked his quills in agitation. Do you claim your leadership has been selectively erasing dissent under the guise of culture? I don't claim it, Sira said. I survived it. Another tribunal member stood. You are a criminal, an exile. Then let history record that it was a criminal who exposed the truth. The chamber erupted. Voices clashed, some demanding investigation, others defending sovereignty. Amid the chaos, Elias tapped his tablet and transmitted the full data package to every council terminal. The files exploded onto screens. Names of the executed, the altered, the silenced. Code strings overlapped brain scans like chains. Stop the transmission, a tribunal voice bellowed. It's done, Elias said. You can't bury it now. The council chair, an elder Sistari with transparent skin like molten crystal, struck the sound gong. Silence fell like a blade. This chamber will now deliberate in emergency session, she said. The tribunal's authority is suspended pending investigation. Shock waves rippled outward. Later, behind sealed doors, Sira sat on a bench beside Elias, her hands clenched in her lap. You just dismantled your ruling class in 20 minutes, he said, voice low. They dismantled themselves, she replied. I just gave them a mirror. He looked at her. What will you do now? She considered it. Go back. Back? After all that. To find the others. To protect the ones still hiding. We cracked the door open today. But that's all it was, a crack. He didn't argue. He just nodded. An aide entered, eyes wide. Elias, the Sistari delegation wants to speak with you in private. They're offering provisional asylum for Valari dissenters. Sira rose. Then we'll need transport and safe routes. I'll arrange it, Elias said. She moved toward the exit, then stopped. Thank you. He looked at her, tired but smiling. No, thank you. Outside the chamber, news feeds were already pulsing with headlines. Valari purity scandal unveiled. Council in uproar. Protesters had begun to gather in orbiting stations. Some waved banners. Others burned tribunal effigies. Change was beginning, but not safety. Later that week, Sira descended onto the desert world again. Not as a prisoner, but with a squad of human and Arcan observers. Hidden rebel enclaves welcomed her like returning kin. She found Ken alive, bruised, but smiling. Did they listen? Ken asked. They heard, Sira said. Now we make them care. Together they began to rebuild. Not an army, but a movement. The tribunal's networks fractured. Some loyalists turned informants. Others vanished. A new generation of Valari began to question what they'd been taught. Not all accepted the truth, but enough did. And one day, not long after the dust began to settle, Sira stood beneath twin suns, watching a new class of children walk into a school where curiosity was no longer a crime. She didn't speak. She just breathed. Alive. Free. Whole.